A group of criminals disguised themselves as SWAT officers and robbed drug dealers, underground casinos, and businesses known to keep large amounts of cash on hand, hitting 50 homes over several months. How did a crew this brutal and this professional operate right under police noses for months without getting caught? This story starts in Detroit in the early 90s. Back then, entire neighborhoods were controlled by drug cartels. Violent crime was rampant, and cocaine and heroin were sold out in the open. Dealers were pulling in huge amounts of cash every week, and they never put it in banks. Instead, they hid stacks of it inside couch cushions, under mattresses, and in shoeboxes. That turned out to be exactly the weakness this crew was looking for. The criminals understood the dealers' one fatal flaw perfectly. Since dealers were already breaking the law, there was no way they'd ever call the police if they got robbed. But robbing armed drug dealers directly was extremely risky. Dealers all carried guns and had bodyguards, so barging in usually meant a shootout. The one group dealers never fought back against was the police. Guys who'd spent years in that world knew the rule. When real cops show up, the only way to survive is to hit the ground and cooperate. Two ringleaders spotted that opening and came up with a wild plan. Pose as SWAT the entire time, copy real police tactics, and rob other criminals without ever firing a shot. The operation had two key players: the mastermind, Obie Carter, and the enforcer, Andre Woods. Carter, the planner, was meticulous. He spent weeks perfecting every part of the operation, forging court search warrants, casing target homes around the clock, tracking residents' daily routines, mapping out entrances, exits, and escape routes, planning every raid down to the smallest detail. Woods, the enforcer, was brutal by nature and obsessed with SWAT tactics. He studied real police procedures for breaching doors, clearing rooms, and running interrogations, and even set up a training camp in an abandoned house. The crew outfitted themselves with actual police-grade gear: bulletproof vests marked police, standard-issue uniforms, and heavy weapons. To keep their identities hidden for good, they skipped police helmets and wore full-face masks instead, making sure no one could ever recognize them. Woods had no limits. Violence was always his first move. When interrogating victims, if someone refused to say where the money was hidden, he'd shoot them straight through an arm or leg to force them into talking. His methods were brutal. Together, the two of them built a 30-person crew, every member with a record of robbery or attacking drug dealers. To prevent infighting and leaks, the crew set an ironclad rule: everyone split the take exactly evenly, and stolen goods were fenced together as a group. That shared stake kept everyone loyal, and for a long time, nobody flipped on the crew. In February 1994, the crew carried out their first documented robbery. They stormed a well-known dealer's hideout using standard SWAT breach tactics, and everyone inside instantly broke and dropped to the floor in surrender. One dealer, though, held out. Convinced these were real cops, he wouldn't try anything, but he refused to talk during questioning. A crew member fired a shot that grazed his scalp. That level of terror broke him completely, and he confessed exactly where the cash was hidden inside the couch. It wasn't until the crew had fully cleared out that the dealer realized these guys weren't cops at all. He called the police immediately, but real officers who showed up were completely baffled. There'd been no SWAT operation or official search warrant in that area that night. The victim gave a detailed description of the suspect's full police gear and tactics, but with no leads to match it against, the case had to be shelved for the time being. And that was just the beginning of this crime spree. Over the following months, identical robberies kept happening all across Detroit. Some robbed dealers called the police. Others just quietly took the loss. Police quickly teamed up with the FBI to form a task force, determined to hunt down this phantom fake SWAT crew. But the investigation went nowhere fast. After every job, the crew wiped the scene clean, never showed their faces, and left behind no fingerprints, DNA, or usable evidence. Making things even harder, every single victim was a drug dealer, and even after getting robbed, they refused to talk to police, terrified of drawing more attention to themselves. Even when the task force publicly promised to go after the criminals and not prosecute victims for dealing drugs, almost nobody was willing to cooperate, and no one could give police a usable description of anyone's face. The case stalled completely. What made it worse was that the crew was starting to spiral out of control, no longer sticking to just robbing drug dealers. Innocent civilians started getting caught up in it too. At one point, they hit the wrong address and broke into the home of a man in his 70s living alone. Once they realized he wasn't their target, Instead of leaving, they violently interrogated him and broke his arm. Records show at least 6 women were brutally assaulted by the crew during these robberies. What started as a scheme to rob criminals had turned into a campaign of terror against innocent people. At one point, the task force floated a chilling theory. Maybe these guys were so professional, their tactics so precise, that they had to be current or former corrupt cops. Police reviewed every officer fired for corruption in recent years, but found no match. Even the most airtight criminal operation eventually falls apart over one careless mistake. On the 26th of July, 1994, police responded to a report of a street shooting and found a man lying on the ground, seriously wounded. He was decked out in full police tactical gear, a vest marked police, a face mask, with standard-issue weapons and ammunition scattered around him, matching every detail of the mysterious fake SWAT crew. The wounded man was a crew member named Garrison. He'd been shot 5 times, with wounds tearing through his stomach and limbs. His injuries were critical. Police rushed him to the hospital. While he was being treated, investigators noticed Garrison was completely broken, emotionally. It wasn't just the gunshot wounds that had wrecked him. It was the way his own crew had betrayed him. As it turned out, the crew had staked out a dealer's hideout all day, and despite being spotted by people watching from outside, they'd pushed forward with a nighttime raid anyway. But the dealers inside had been waiting for them, armed and ready to ambush. Garrison was the first one through the door and got hit by a wall of gunfire instantly. He went down, unable to move, bleeding heavily, close to death. His crewmates watched him get shot and hit the ground, and not one of them came to help. Not one of them tried to carry him out. Every single one of them turned and ran, leaving their badly wounded partner alone, bleeding out in the dark on the street. Months of training together, robbing together, and splitting money together, and when it came down to life or death, his crew treated him like something disposable to be tossed aside. That kind of betrayal hit harder than his fear of the gang ever had, and Garrison decided to flip. He gave the FBI one condition: full immunity from prosecution and lifetime witness protection for himself and his family. Investigators agreed immediately. Once Garrison was stable, they moved him to a safe house on the outskirts of the city under full protection. From there, he blew the whole operation wide open. He gave up the full roster of crew members, every hideout, their meeting schedules, and how everything was organized, naming Obie Carter as the mastermind and Andre Woods as the head of enforcement. Working off his testimony, police launched round-the-clock surveillance and wiretaps, and the takedown officially began. While police were preparing for the arrests, another violent incident erupted inside the crew. On the 4th of September 1994, Andre Woods secretly turned one of their hideouts into an illegal casino. After a dispute broke out over gambling, he shot and killed 4 men in front of witnesses. That brutal killing landed him on the FBI's most wanted list. Just a week later, buckling under the pressure of a nationwide manhunt, Andre turned himself in to police. With the number 2 leader now behind bars, Obie Carter, the mastermind, grew increasingly paranoid, constantly changing addresses, altering his schedule, and bouncing between hideouts. Wiretap intel revealed the crew was planning one final major robbery in November 1994. Police prepared for the worst, warning every officer involved that this crew was extremely violent, was carrying armor-piercing police-grade ammunition, and would likely fight to the death if cornered. At 9 p.m. on November 11, the operation began. 6 crew members, dressed in police uniforms and carrying heavy weapons, left their hideout, and real police cars, already in position, moved in immediately, triggering a high-speed chase through the streets. After a chaotic gunfight, Obie Carter, the mastermind, was killed on the spot. The remaining members either surrendered right there or were caught quickly by the FBI. Police then raided every hideout linked to the crew, seizing large quantities of police uniforms, heavy weapons, armor-piercing ammunition, and a massive stash of stolen cash and goods. Faced with overwhelming evidence, the captured members completely broke down, turning on each other and confessing to everything. In the end, out of the 30-member crew, only Carter, killed in the shootout, and Garrison, in witness protection, avoided prosecution. The remaining 28 were all arrested and convicted. This fake SWAT crime wave, which had terrorized Detroit for nearly a year, was finally over. Not a single law enforcement officer was injured during the entire takedown operation, but the trauma this crew left behind never fully healed. The elderly man whose arm they broke spent the rest of his life terrified every time someone knocked on his door. The 6 women who were assaulted during the robberies never fully escaped the psychological scars.